All right, welcome back. We are going to go over one of the cooler tutorials that I've ever done, and this is a time saver. I know I give people a hard time on occasions for using a lot of clickbait, but in this case, it's not actually clickbait. I'm going to actually show you how to turn this into a one-click action that will work for both horizontal and vertical images. Just let it be known, every action does not work perfectly for every image. We're going to turn this into a watermark, and you're going to be able to put this over your photo and save it for output to the web. That's really the goal. This has nothing to do with print. The problem is sometimes you need a white logo, sometimes you need a black logo. There are going to be some instances where it doesn't work perfectly, but in general, it's going to do the action. You're just going to have to make one extra step and invert it so it becomes a negative or a positive. So you have two options. You can either use your logo. You could really use whatever you wanted. You could use a picture or you could use your signature. Look, my signature is absolutely horrible. I don't use it for anything. These are just for documents that I have. So it's something that I had, but I don't actually put this on my photos. What you will need though is either your logo on a transparent background or you're going to need your logo. And so I'll use my logo to show you how to create a transparent background and get this so it'll work. Step number one, create either a signature or a logo on a transparent background. If you haven't done either one of these, you can make your life really easy by doing this. File, new. Pick the size of document that you want. So in this case, let's do 1080 by 1080. But right here, notice it says background contents. You have the option of doing white, black, background color, but transparent is what we want. So we're going to go ahead and hit create. And you can see it creates the transparent background right away. Or if you had a pen or a way to create your logo, you would write it right here. It would automatically be on your transparent background and you can save that out. Just note, to save an image and keep the transparency, it must be either a PNG, a TIFF, or a PSD file, which is a Photoshop file. So you just can't save it any old way. If you save this as a JPEG, the transparency part is going to turn to white. So you must save it as a PNG, a TIFF, or a Photoshop file. Let's get rid of that. So let me show you how to create transparency. So in this case, I actually want to make this black and white. I don't want the red, even though I like it. It's not going to work for this situation. I'm going to do the world's simplest version of this. I'm just going to go to image mode, grayscale. So we're just going to simply turn this into a grayscale image at this point. Now mine's a little pixelated. This is only a 900 pixel image, but this is going to be work perfect for a watermark. I don't need a big giant image for this. However, if you have a larger file and then you size it down after we do this, that can work and give you a better, cleaner image. Step number two. We want to make everything sort of black here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to select a white. So I'm going to grab something that I almost never use, which is the magic wand. But in this case, it's the perfect option. And notice we've got point sample. And in this case, I usually do an average of 5x5 or 5x11 when I do this. I'm going to leave my tolerance at about 22. We'll try that. And this is important. Contiguous should be unchecked. And then I'm going to click. And what that does is anything that is that color white, it's making a selection out of it. Anything white right now is selected. However, I don't want white selected. I want the opposite. So you're going to go to select, inverse. Now everything but white is select. Then we're going to go to edit, fill, and we're going to change this to black because we want everything to be filled in black. And boom, now everything is perfectly black. So we're good to go. The next step after filling this with black is we're going to come in here and create a mask. So you're going to come down here to this little symbol right here, click on it, and boom, just like that. We've created a mask, and now you can see everything that was white is now transparent. You can see this got a little jaggy down here on my images. This is where having a higher resolution logo is going to look better. So the next step here is to change this black to white. Now there are going to be times where you actually want this in black, but for most of the times white's going to work. So we need to come over here and we need to actually select the image. And then we're going to hit Command I, which is invert, and that's going to change everything that was black to white. Now, if you want your image to be flat like this, you can go ahead and just leave it. You're good to go right now. This is what we want. This is going to work. However, I'm going to do one more step, and I think this step is helpful whether you want it flat or not. I'm going to right click out here in the gray, and I'm going to change this to a smart object. And in this case, we're going to be able to import this image as a smart object, and it's going to let us be able to change some stuff, which is going to be helpful with the process. One thing that you can do is you can add like a little drop shadow or outer shadow on the outside. So I could come out here into the gray, double click. That's going to bring up my layer styles. And then I can come down here to like drop shadow, and you can see it's giving me this cool little drop shadow. Now this isn't exactly how I want this, so I can go ahead and change it. So if I want the size to be smaller and the spread to be smaller and the distance to be a little smaller, I just want it a little bit on the outside right there. So that looks pretty good. You can change your colors in any of these options inside of layer style and drop shadow when you do this. And the cool thing about using a smart object is that makes it non-destructive. So once we hit OK, if we wanted to go back into drop shadow, we just double click that and we have the option to come back here and refine it. But for right now, we're just going to leave it like that. That looks pretty good. Next step, save this out and save it to a location that you won't delete it or move it. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go to File, Save As. You could use Save as a Copy. I will use my Pictures folder. I will create a new folder and I will call this Watermark Logo White 900p. So 900p means 900 pixels. If I did want to use this watermark for something else, I can see I've got watermark spelled wrong here. I know what size it is, so if it's not going to work, I can always go grab another one. And we'll go ahead and hit create. And then I've got the same thing up here. I'm going to do this again. So I'm going to name this Watermark Logo 900p. And I want to save this as a Photoshop file. And that's going to, it's going to give me the editability of this smart object. Go ahead and hit save. So this is the process. We've saved this. We don't need this file anymore. We can delete it. Now, step number 2 is to create an action. Problem with this is when you work in Photoshop and you create an action, you have to create a different action for this process when you do a horizontal image and when you save a vertical image. So we're going to be saving all our images, in this case, at 1500 pixels output for the web. Look, that number can be whatever you want. If you want to use 1000, if you want to use 2000, it doesn't matter. The part that you want to remember is this works for a specific saving size. So this action is going to save everything that you ever save in Photoshop the same size to be outputted to a specific spot. So we will start with horizontal just to make this easy for everybody. And what we need to do is make sure actions is available. So this is actions right up here, or you could go up to window actions and that will make actions available. This is button mode. Now I have a lot of actions and I actually have an action like this created already. So we're going to go up here and I'm going to hit button mode again to get rid of it. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to click on this group because I'm going to create something new for just this. And this is going to be called water. Most people aren't going to understand why I do this, but it will make sense in a second. I'm going to hit plus to create a new action. And I'm going to call this the same thing over again. But I'm going to delete the 1500 pixels. And I'm not going to add anything. I'm just going to hit record. and then hit stop. This actually isn't doing anything. It's actually creating a title, and it will make sense in a second. Next step, we're going to come in here and hit plus, and we're going to hit Command V or Control V and paste that again. So this is actually going to be my watermark horizontal action for this file. Function key none, color, it really doesn't matter. In this case, I'm going to usually create both actions the same color so they're easy to find, and we'll make these blue. We're not going to create a function key on this one. We're going to create the function key somewhere else. I'm going to hit record. Now everything that I do is going to be recorded over here as I do it. So remember, this is my image and it's been toned. I want to save this as a PSD or a TIFF file before I proceed, because now on I'm going to reduce the size of my file. You don't want to do all this work on an image and then reduce the file and save it, because you'll lose everything that you did. So I always save this as a PSD file, and this is my working file inside of Photoshop. That way I don't have to tone everything over again. Now I've done that, so we're not going to worry about it. Now I'm going to go through the steps that I would use to create a file for the web. So I'm going to go to image, image size. And if you remember, we're making these 1500 pixels. So I'm hitting 1500. Notice pixels is selected. That is important. It doesn't matter what you have in resolution. It does not affect the image. You just want to hit 15 pixels on the longest dimension, which in this case is width. And I'm going to hit OK. Now that has sized my image. The next step, and this one can be confusing to people, so I'm going to create another step in here to make it easy for this process and for you guys to understand. I've got my image at 100%. You cannot sharpen an image unless it's at 100%. However, to sharpen an image, you have to make sure that you're sharpening the background image. Since we're going to be saving this out as a JPEG, we're going to lose the layers anyways. So at this point, I usually include layer, flatten image. You have to make sure that when you sharpen, it was on a background image, and it wasn't. Remember, it was on a layered image, and it wouldn't have sharpened the actual photo. So adding this little flatten image kind of saves you from screwing anything up. The next step is to sharpen. How you sharpen is up to you. I actually prefer the old unsharp mask version, and I kind of know about how much I like to sharpen for certain images. So for 1500 pixels, I usually do around 25%. Now, depending on the image, I might adjust my threshold a little bit, but I'm just going to leave it at 10 for right now. If you wanted to use Smart Sharpen or another sharpening method, feel free to use any sharpening method that you want and any amount that you want. What's important is you need to be at 100%. You can see right here, well, the reason we're at 100% is because Photoshop knows that you need to be at 100% so you can see accurately how you're sharpening. I'm going to hit OK. That's applied the unsharp mask. That must be done after you size the image, or the sharpening won't be accurate. The next step is to convert this to sRGB. I presently work in Adobe RGB, so I need to convert to sRGB. The color profile used on the web is sRGB. We're going to go up to Edit, drop down to Convert to Profile, and I've already got it set. So this is my source space that I'm working in, and we want to convert it to sRGB. You will not see any change when you do this, but you'll hit OK. So now we've saved that image there, and we're good to go. So the next step is to add that watermark that we created to this file. So we're going to go to File, Linked. Right here is the Photoshop file we created. We're going to come down here. We're going to hit Place. And now we have the option to either leave it this size, make it smaller, or move it around. So if you notice right here, we've got width and height in percentage, and we want to make sure that link is selected. Okay. So we want to make sure link is selected, and then we can come in here and change that. So if I wanted to do 100%, I could do 100%, or I could make that a different percentage, or I could do it in pixels. So I could do 300 and change that to px, and that would change it to 300 pixels in width, and keep it at that percentage in height. So you can see that it's smaller there. And you can do this as big or as small as you want. So I'm just going to leave it at 300 pixels for this image. And then once we're done with that, we'll come up here and we're going to check Apply. All right, the next step is to select all. So you're going to go to select, select all. So it's going to pick everything here. What that's going to do is give us the chance or the ability to move that. So we're going to come up here to our move tool, which is the letter V, and click on that. And then you'll notice that we've got these different options. In this case, we're going to put it in the bottom right-hand corner, but if you wanted to make sure it was perfectly centered, you could click on those two. But in this case, we're going to hit right, bottom right. All right. So now it's right in the bottom right. However, it's way too small, way down there in that corner. We don't want it that far down. So what I'm going to do is hold shift. If you could do this two ways, you could use your arrow key to nudge it up, but each time you go, it's just going to go up a little bit. If you hold shift, it's going to do it in larger increments. So let's hold shift and press move up on your keyboard. 1, 2, and then 1, 2. And look, you could do 3, 4, 5. It doesn't make a difference. All we're doing is moving this image. Now, once we've done that, notice that it is selected. I'm going to hit Command D to deselect. And I'm going to do one last thing. I actually don't like when it is this stark or this bright. So I'm going to fade it into my image a little bit. So I'm going to come up here to opacity. I'm just going to slide the opacity down. And usually I'll do this around 70%, usually somewhere between 50 and 70%. So that looks pretty good. So now we've got the logo right down there in the bottom right-hand corner, and we're good to go. If you want to stop the action at this point, you can stop the action. We've done what we wanted to do. You could come down here and hit stop, or you could come up here and hit stop recording right there. Either one of these two. However, I'm going to add one more step to this, which is the save as step. So I'm going to go to file, and you can either do file save as, but since most people are going to have to use save as a copy to do save as a JPEG, unless they've selected something called legacy options. Assuming that people don't know what that means, I'm going to do save as a copy. This is just going to make it easier. And we're going to go ahead and change this to a JPEG. Notice that the embedded color profile is that sRGB. And the last thing you would need to do is just go ahead and add a name to this that makes sense. And you are good to go. I'll hit save, and I will hit return, and then I'm going to hit stop. But what I'm going to do is hit a little tick mark right there. And what this is going to allow this to do is stop when it gets to save. And what I can do is I can go back in time and hit revert to show you what this is going to do. So we're going to hit revert. This is going to bring this image back to its original state where nothing has been done. And I'll just play this through. So I'm going to hit play. And you can see, notice how it stops now at the save as. So that will allow you to pick the location, the file type, and name when you do this. So that's something that you want to do because you don't want to save every single thing exactly the way this was saved. You're going to put that little tick mark. That little tick mark makes it so that you can stop anywhere there's a numerical or an input. So if I wanted it to stop on image size, so I could change my image size, I would just hit that little tick mark. In this case, we're not going to do that. So that's number one. That's the one we needed to do, our horizontal. So now we need to go through and do the exact same thing on a vertical one, because Photoshop can't figure out the difference between the two. So the trick with this action is to actually create 3 actions to do one thing, which is kind of counterintuitive, but that's what you have to do. So we'll go ahead and close this out. So we're going to create a new action down here with the plus. We're going to call this one Command V to paste that in. And we're going to change horizontal to vertical. So we're saving it into that set, which is what we want to do. We made this one blue, so we're going to make it blue. And then we're going to hit record. We're going to go through those same steps, and I'll do them faster. So we're going to go to image, image size. In this case, we're going to make the height 1500 and hit OK. So that's going to resize our image. I'll hit Command plus just so it's 100%. People can see the image. Step number 2 is to flatten it. Remember, we made that there. So we're going to go to layer, flatten image. Step number 3 is to sharpen. I've already got my unsharp settings how I want them. So I can just hit InSharp mask, but I could go down here and just go sharpen, unsharp mask. It's going to have your last settings. I'm going to hit OK. We're going to convert that to that profile. So convert to profile, sRGB. We're good to go. The next step is to place that file. So we're going to go File, Place Linked. We're going to select the watermark file and hit place. So you notice it sized it weird. We want to make sure this is 300 pixels as well. So we'll come up there and type in 300. So now it's 300 pixels. We're going to hit apply. So that's the right size. You're going to go to your move tool, select all, which is Command or Control A to select all. And that's going to give us the options to align this. So align this to the right, align this to the bottom, and then we're going to move it by holding Shift. I'm going to use my arrow key 1, 2, and my left arrow key 1, 2. And so that's where I had that. Command or Control D to deselect. And now this is placed down here on this bottom section. We're going to change the opacity like we did before to about 70%. And we're good. So now I've got that white logo. Now, if you do have something that's super white, it's not going to work. And in that case, you are going to need to come in here and invert this to a black color, which is easy to do. But for right now, we're just going to go ahead and keep working on this because it's an action. The last step in the action was save as a copy. So File, Save as a copy. It's going to leave everything as is because I'm going to stop that action on that section. So I'm going to hit save. So we'll give this something different. Let's call it 555 and we'll hit save. And we want this to be baseline standard, large. Okay. And then we're going to hit stop. And then I'm going to hit the little tick mark on the save. All right. So we can test this to make sure it works. So we'll go to File, Revert. Back to the beginning, you can click on here, hit play, see if it works. Boom, just like that. Got that there. We can input this if we wanted. I'm going to hit cancel. And so the last step is to create what we call a variable action. Now I've done this where I've created a variable action before, but never with the watermark logo. Come up here and hit plus. And we're going to save this as watermark 1500. And what that means is this is the action that we're actually going to use. We're going to change this to a function key. So in this case, I'll just do F3 and I'll do Shift F3. Look, you could do whatever you wanted. I'm going to create this one as blue as well. I'm just doing a weird action so it doesn't override anything else that I have going on right now. And we're going to hit record. Once you've hit record, you're going to come up here to the hamburger menu. You're going to click this and you're going to hit Insert Conditional. And it says, if the document is a landscape, meaning horizontal, play this action, which is the horizontal. Else, play the vertical. Okay. Stop. That's it. It's just a conditional action. So now watch what will happen. We're going to switch out and go to button mode. And down here on the very bottom, you can see this is why we created the black. And you can see anytime I have a black, it's creating a new set of actions. It makes it easy for me to find them. So we've got the horizontal, we've got the vertical, but the one we're going to use is just the plain 1500. So we'll take both of these files and we're going to revert them back. So we'll go revert. Revert. All right, so they're back to where they were. And in this case, I'm just going to hit this. And what this is going to do, it's going to say, remember, if this is horizontal, play this action. If it's vertical, play this action. So I just click this and boom, just like that, we've gone to the save. We're ready to go. I'll hit cancel. You can see it added everything just like we wanted. It stopped red because I didn't save it through. Normally you would save the image out and it wouldn't turn red. We can override that by going out of button mode. You can also do these out of button mode, so we can just hit 1500. Come over here to this one and I can hit play. And you can see it's going to stop right here. I can tell it to save and to replace. And that looks good. And we're good to go. So that's how you create this really cool action to save both horizontally and vertically with one click. So can we really do it with one click? So we're going to go up here to File, Revert. And remember, the quick key was Shift F3. So I'm going to hit 3. Just like that, it did it. So you can hit one action now to either do vertical or horizontal with one click, and it's going to get you into the saving action. And you can eliminate that whole tedious process of having to save files every time you want to send something to the web. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. It can really help. It takes me a long time to create these videos, and the algorithm really wants us to have engagement in the videos. So if you could give it a thumbs up and subscribe, that would really help. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave those below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe.